Hey everyone, so I just wanted to say one quick thing. This is now part 3 and it's the final part of our France reptiles. So stay tuned, enjoy and check out the end of the video for an announcement. Next up we have the ladder snake. Let's see if we can find that. There we go. Now this looks like a cute little danger noodle. And ladder snakes are medium large snakes with older females possibly attaining 1.7 meters, but 1 meter is the average length. Their head is quite prominent and distinct from their body, almost a squashed egg shape, and small non-prominent eyes with round pupils. The adult colour is uniform, shades of grey or browns, with the black being well marked with 2 darker longitude parallel bands. And juvenile snakes are usually much lighter in colour, varying from yellow to light brown, with the characteristic ladder pattern, which from the name is derived, picked out in black along the back. The pale underside has black markings which sometimes coalesce to cover the whole of the underside, and as they age these colours and patterns fade until the simpler adult pattern is left. As you can kind of see it running down the back, it's probably easier to show you with this bit, is you've got 2 long black lines that go from the neck all the way down, and it looks like the rungs of a ladder. And they are only found to be in the south of France, where their preferred habitats are dry and sunny, often slightly barren with bushy scrub, and preys mainly small mammals, but birds, insects and lizards are also eaten. Older, larger snakes will kill fairly large prey by constriction, and juveniles prefer small lizards, baby rodents, spiders and grasshoppers. They usually hunt at dusk and during the night in hot conditions, and their young are nocturnal. Being discreet and fearful, they flee from any disturbance, taking cover in a hole in the ground or a hollow tree. However, they can become extremely irritated when cornered, hissing ferociously and sometimes biting if handled. They are very susceptible to cold, and hibernation takes place between October and April. And their couplings take place in April and May, or a little later at higher altitudes, or if weather conditions are poor, about 12 eggs are deposited under an old tree stump or a large layer of pine needles in July, and hatching can take place anything from 6 to 12 weeks depending on the temperature. And honestly, that is a very, very cute snake. So next up we have the southern smooth snake. If we can just pull that up. So here we have is the southern smooth snake. And these are very similar to the smooth snake. And they are small, round-bodied snake, around about 50 centimeters to 80 centimeters in length, with a head that is somewhat flat with a pointed nose. At the rear of the head are 2 dark bands in the form of a U or a V at the open end of the V facing towards the tail, although this feature isn't always clear and can be joined up. So we can't see that at the moment because obviously we don't have the tail in the picture. They are found in the west, southwest and south of France, and tend to live at lower altitudes, seeking dry, sunny open spaces where the vegetation is sparse. Rocky hillsides, old quarries, stone walls along the edges of open woodland, hedgerows and coastal dunes. And the lizards are the main source of prey, and rarely small mammals, on the occasion geckos and young insects. And their young usually eat insects. Try not to make sure I don't mess up any of my notes. I don't want to be going around in a circle with stuff. And their main period of activity and prey seeking is during the night, and generally spending the day inactive and under cover. They are not very agile and tend to move rather slowly, rarely being aggressive. And sometimes can bite if handled, and they will also emit a foul scent from their anal glands. They don't like cold or wet, and they have a long hibernation period from September until April. So that foul scent from the anal glands, it's called it's called musking, and a lot of animals do it. They have a long hibernation period from September until April under a manure, compost heap, or a rotting tree stump. Bless me. And coupling usually takes place up to about 16 eggs, and they're usually stuck together and are produced in July. The young tend to be active during the day and only measure about 10 centimeters. So next up we have grass snakes. See if I can find them. I don't think I've got the pictures up. Oh no, I have. So here we go. And in France there are two species of grass snake. And so one's usually called the Swiss grass snake, which is present everywhere in France, and the Nastric astrophina, and the Iberian grass snake, which is found in Andorre, Ude, and the Pyrenees. And these are distinct species that are genetically different, and they're not subspecies. Grass snakes display a large degree of variation. They're both body coloration and markings with shade of grey and green, with a dark splashes or bands being most common, but some individuals can be all dark grey or black. They get their previous name in French from the characteristic collar, which is formed by two half-moon bands at the rear of the head. These can be yellow, white, red, or orange in colour, although in some individuals these can be absent. So you can kind of see it here, where there is a slight yellow banding on the neck. Females can grow with age into very large snakes, anything up to 2 meters, and males are usually 80 centimeters with an average of 60. These can be found all over France in all types of habitats, but be that woodlands or open spaces, but with a preference for areas where water is present to some degree, and they are quite happy to live alongside asp vipers, and their preferred diet is frogs, lizards, newts, small fish, including larvae and eggs, and they also prey on insects, baby birds, small mammals, and voles. And they, as can be seen in like this picture, well, they can't see the picture, but they can be known to have the ability to swallow quite large prey whole, and they don't have any venom fangs. Usually coupling takes place in two distinct periods. The first just coming out of hibernation and the first molt or skin, so shedding, in March and April, and the other in the autumn just prior to hibernation. The period of coupling can bring together a large group of grass snakes in the same place, more males than females, and the fertilization takes place internally. It seems that females are able to keep the male sperm and decide accordingly to conditions whether or not to fertilize themselves. Up to 50 eggs are laid around the month of July inside a heap of compost under a deep pile of leaves or in the base of a rotting tree stump. And the young usually hatch after 4 to 8 weeks and are about 15 to 20 centimeters in length, and having shed their skin in the first few days may sometimes go directly into hibernation. Sorry about this, guys. I have got a bit of a summer cold coming on, which isn't always great. So next we have the Escapilian snake, which we have just here. And these are one of the largest snakes in Europe, and these can be more than 2 meters long, and they're easily recognizable by their long thin body with a small pointed head, prominent eyes and round pupils, and their uniform back colouring being yellowish brown, greyish black or olive green, and sometimes speckled with a pale underside. Juveniles can easily be confused with juvenile grass snakes because juvenile Asclepian snakes also have a yellow collar on the neck that may persist for some time in younger adults. These are found in most regions of France with the exception of the extreme north and northeast, and they prefer a sunny, dry habitat. They generally live in dense vegetation, brambles, thickets and woodland, and this is in combination with their colour make it very difficult to observe them. They can sometimes be seen by the edges of these habitats or on stone walls or roadsides. Their principal diet is composed of small mammals, birds and their young from nests in trees, lizards and young snakes, and they kill by constriction and suffocation and by eating their prey head first. And their main period of activity is during the day until nightfall. And although perhaps principally a land dweller, they are also spectacular tree climbers and are able to climb vertical old rough bark trees or wind their way through the branches of bushes, and they generally a calm snake with very little aggression. And their coupling takes place in May with some simulated combat, which, although sometimes spectacular, is completely harmless for those taking part. And females produce between 5 to 20 eggs in June or July. These are laid under an old stone, in a stone wall, under decomposing vegetation / compost heap, or in the rotting base of a tree stump. Hatching is usually about 8 weeks later. So next up we have the Western whip snake. Which we have just here. Now these Western whip snakes are present in the southern 3/4 of France, and they are very difficult to confuse with other snakes in this country, as their French name implies. They are predominantly dark green with yellow dashes or bands which traverse on the main part of their body and are longitudinal towards the tail. Although these can be seen in photos, various forms exist depending on the stage of development, with young snakes up to about 45 centimeters being grey/brown with a marbled head, and growing to about 2 meters. They can be large snakes when mature with prominent eyes and round pupils. They can occupy all types of habitats, and they have a preference for dry, quiet areas, open woodland and land which is left to scrub or fallows, sometimes to be filled near rivers or other wet areas. And they are extraordinary hunters, and their prey varies with local availability, but it will predominantly take small mammals, small birds, frogs, lizards, etc. They also have been known to eat adders and even their own species. They are a very powerful snake. Though normally discreet, they can be obscene and quite aggressive, thrashing the ground with their tails and hissing when angered, sometimes tilting their head back and then striking and biting with force, but they are no serious concern to humans, and given the chance will always flee rapidly. They are also agile climbers, weaving their way rapidly through bushes and hedgerows. Frequently they shed their skins and found in people's attics or roof spaces where they can enjoy safety and heat. And their hibernation usually takes place from October until April, and using underground cavities, low cavities, in or under trees and stumps, beneath stone walls, etc. And their period of hibernation is variable and is temperature driven, meaning they can be active in late winter in some regions on warmer sunny days. And their coupling takes place in May and can result in violent fights between males for a female. This can also occur between the sexes, and during copulation the partners roll and twist themselves round each other, keeping their heads raised upright, and usually between 5 and 20 stone eggs are deposited under stones, old tree stumps, or in rotting vegetation in June or July, and the younglings hatch about 6 to 8 weeks later. So we've got 3 snakes left. So let's put up the next snake. It's the meadow viper. So here we have a meadow viper, and these small vipers have a maximum length of about 50 centimeters. Their coloration is a grey, brown or olive green with a very boldly marking black zigzag pattern on the back, which is completely joined up and solid, and it also has a rounded nose and eyes with vertical slit pupils. They can be found at altitudes of 900 to 2200 meters in France, and it is only in the Provence Alpes, Côte d'Azur, and is extremely rare and in danger of extinction in the only 3 EU countries where it is present, which is France, Italy and Greece, with the IUCN red listing. It prefers open rocky habitats with some shrubbery growth and sparse grasslands and pastures. They are very sensitive to disturbance and human activity, and most studies conclude that it is not aggressive and rarely bites humans. 9 times out of 10, if it does strike, it does keep its mouth closed when approached by humans. It chooses either to remain completely still or flee slowly and silently. They're primarily an insect eater, and their prey is almost entirely grasshoppers, crickets and other insects, and only occasionally small mammals which it hunts during the morning and early afternoon. And their hibernation is from October until April-May. Now, it's been very difficult to study these vipers' reproductions in the wild. It's believed to be that they are oviviviparous, and the female cycle is essentially biannual, and coupling takes place towards the end of May. Between 3 and 8 young are born between the end of August and the end of September, when they go straight into hibernation and do not eat until June the following year. So not much is known about the reproduction cycle, so they can't go and do studies and everything at the moment. So next we have the Sion's viper, but it's better known as the Pyrenees viper. So here we have it here. These are very scarce and localized, and they can only be found in the northern of the Iberian Peninsula, so near Spain and Portugal, and in the extreme southwest of France near the northern border with Spain. It is the only viper present in its Iberian distribution, with the exception of the southwest of France, where it can overlap with the asp viper. And these can be found up to an altitude of 1200 meters in Portugal and up to 1900 meters in the mountains of the Cantabrian coast. And in France, they reach a maximum altitude of 1250 meters, which is in the Pyrenees. In France, the Sion's viper is confined to the Pyrenees department, where they are present along the border with Spain from the coast, where they become to the Arasi Massif, where they reach their eastern limit. The Sion's viper is a snake whose length generally varies between 40 and 50 centimeters, with females being larger than males. As is the case of all European vipers, they have eyes with vertical slit pupils, a relatively triangular head, but wide and less than the other vipers of France, and their tail, which tapers quite quickly. They also have very thick scales above the eyes, giving the impression of eyebrows, and the scales are quite strongly needled and even ribbed, rather than oval in shape, and rather large in size, giving a rough appearance to the skin, which can lead to possible confusion with the asp viper. And their diet is about 80% small rodents, and the remainder is mainly lizards and small birds, but juvenile snakes mainly eat small lizards. Usually their reproduction is every year, and when climate conditions during the year are colder than usual and the activity period becomes shorter, the females reproduce every second year. The young, between 3 and 10, are born between the end of August and the beginning of September, and they shed their skin in the first few days following birth and commence feeding. And their hibernation takes place between November and March. And we now have our last snake, which I think is our last snake. Yeah, which is the Viperian snake. So these are usually, this is the smallest of the conurivers to be found in France, and they rarely exceed about 60 to 70 centimetres, although females can possibly grow up to 1 metre. They are frequently mistaken to be one of the different vipers to be found in France, hence the name from the French vipère. Their head is clearly distinct from their body, being wider with a flat top and sides. So as you can see here in the picture, and a rather pointed nose and eyes with round pupils. They can be found throughout the most of France, with the exception of the very north and northeast, living in an all-around manner of water sources, including rapidly flowing rivers, streams, ponds, canals and lakes, where their preferred diet is made up of fish. However, all manner of aquatic life will be taken, including frogs and newts. They can consume vast quantities, sometimes eating fish more than a quarter of their own size. And they are diurnal and excellent swimmers, staying underwater for a considerable length of time or just resting in the water with their head protruding from the surface. Otherwise, they can be seen sunning themselves by the waterside. In case of danger, they slip away rapidly and silently, but when they are threatened, they adopt a very similar imitating pose to a viper, hissing loudly and jerking their heads in the direction of the threat, and will even strike, but with their mouth closed. They will also emit a very unpleasant scent from their anal glands, muskin. They are a snake that often scares people when they see them in the water when they're paddling or bathing, but they are completely harmless. And their hibernation is from October until March and April, and they either are alone or in the company of other snakes in a hole or beneath a pile of rocks. And they are incredibly resistant to cold, surviving temperatures of minus 15 degrees. And coupling takes place in March and April, followed by laying of between 5 and 15, sometimes 20 eggs in July, in moist soil or an abandoned hole in the ground, and after 4 to 6 weeks the younglings hatch. So, a bit of a longer episode today, mainly because I wanted to try and get part 2 out and done for everybody so we can move on to the next country. I have the next country in mind. There's about 47 on the list for that country, so I will be splitting that into 2 parts. But let me know if you like when it's a bit of a longer episode and when I try to go into a little bit more detail than what I have been. Also, if you want to join, we have a Discord now. So if you want to be continue being an incredible member of the community, the link is in the description for the Discord. Please feel free to join. It's a very close-knit community full of amazing community members already. And all I ask is if you want to join, you're free to join, and if you don't want to stay, you don't have to. Or if you don't want to join, I'm not forcing you. I just want to be able to interact with you, my community, a little bit easier than in comments. We can chat, we can play games together, and I will be holding certain events only in the Discord. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys for episode 3. Peace.